Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The notification chimed at exactly 2:17 a.m., cutting through the December silence like a blade through wrapping paper. I'd been lying awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, while Elena breathed softly beside me, her phone buzzing on the nightstand like an angry wasp. 3 times in 10 minutes. Who sends work messages at this hour? I'm Luke Hartman, and I've spent the last 8 years building network security systems for companies that actually care about keeping secrets safe. Ironic, considering I was about to discover my own wife had been leaking classified information from our marriage for months. The fourth buzz made Elena stir. She rolled over, her auburn hair catching the pale light from the street lamp outside our bedroom window. Even half asleep, she reached for that phone like it was oxygen. Work stuff, she mumbled, squinting at the screen. Her fingers moved quickly across the surface, typing something back. Work stuff at 2:20 in the morning on a Saturday. Must be urgent, I said, keeping my voice neutral. 8 years of marriage had taught me when to push and when to wait. This felt like a waiting moment. Elena set the phone face down and snuggled closer to me. You know how Mark gets about the holiday campaigns? He's probably having another creative crisis. Mark Feldman, her boss at the boutique advertising agency, where she'd been working as marketing director for the past 2 years. The same Mark who'd been calling her for emergency meetings every other weekend. The same Mark who always seemed to need Elena's input on projects that somehow required dinner meetings at expensive restaurants. I said, wrapping my arm around her. Her phone buzzed again. She tensed against me but didn't reach for it this time. I lay there in the dark, listening to the winter wind rattle our bedroom windows, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger yet. That would come later. This was something else. Recognition, maybe. The same feeling I got when I spotted a security vulnerability in a client's system. That moment when all the little inconsistencies suddenly formed a pattern. Elena's breathing evened out after a few minutes, but I stayed awake until dawn, watching shadows move across the ceiling and thinking about text messages that couldn't wait until morning. The next few days passed in a blur of holiday preparations and careful observation. Elena threw herself into planning our annual Christmas party with the kind of manic energy she usually reserved for major client presentations. She spent hours on the phone with caterers, florists, and wine merchants, transforming our suburban home into what she called a winter wonderland. This year has to be perfect, she told me Tuesday evening, surrounded by fabric samples and menu cards spread across our dining room table. I want everyone to remember this party. Everyone, including Mark, who'd somehow earned a spot at the top of the guest list despite never having attended one of our parties before. Since when do you invite your boss to personal gatherings? I asked, trying to sound casual while I reviewed security protocols for a client's e-commerce site. Elena looked up from her color-coordinated planning sheets. Mark's been so supportive lately. With the Morrison account and everything, I thought it would be nice to include him. The Morrison account, another project that had required numerous late-night strategy sessions and weekend brainstorming retreats. Elena had been working on it for 3 months, and I'd yet to see any actual deliverables. That's thoughtful of you, I said, and meant it. Elena had always been thoughtful. It was one of the things that had attracted me to her in the first place. She remembered birthdays, sent thank you notes, and never forgot an anniversary, which made her recent forgetfulness even more suspicious. She'd missed our monthly dinner at Romano's last week, claiming she'd lost track of time during a client meeting. She'd forgotten to pick up my dry cleaning twice, something that had never happened in 8 years. And she'd started password protecting her laptop, explaining it away as a new company security policy. I knew enough about company security policies to smell nonsense when I heard it. Wednesday night, I made my first real move. Elena had gone to bed early, claiming exhaustion from party planning, and I found myself alone in the kitchen with her phone charging on the counter. She'd left it there while she showered, something she never used to do. The lock screen showed 2 missed calls from Mark and a text preview. Can't wait for Saturday. We need to talk about... The preview cut off there, but it was enough. I memorized the timestamp and went back to my laptop, fingers already moving across the keyboard. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not ashamed of it either. When someone violates your trust, you have 2 choices. Stay ignorant or get informed. I chose information. Elena's phone backed up to our shared cloud account, something she'd set up years ago and apparently forgotten about. It took me 20 minutes to access her message history, and another 10 to wish I hadn't. The texts with Mark went back 4 months. They started professional enough. Meeting times, project updates, client feedback. But somewhere around October, the tone shifted. Messages sent at odd hours. Inside jokes I didn't understand. And then, 3 weeks ago, a message that made my hands shake. Mark, last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Elena, we have to be careful. Luke can't find out. Mark, when are you going to tell him? Elena, soon after the holidays. I want one last perfect Christmas. One last perfect Christmas. Like she was planning a funeral instead of a party. I sat in our kitchen until 3 a.m., scrolling through months of deception. The late meetings were hotel visits. The weekend work sessions were romantic getaways. The Morrison account was apparently code for whatever twisted relationship my wife had built with her boss. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It was the calculation behind it. Elena hadn't fallen into Mark's arms during a moment of weakness or marital crisis. She'd orchestrated this whole thing, planned it out like one of her marketing campaigns, complete with timeline and exit strategy. And I was the target demographic she'd decided to abandon. Thursday morning, Elena hummed while she made coffee, cheerful and energetic in a way I hadn't seen for months. She wore the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she claimed didn't fit right anymore. You seem happy, I observed, accepting the mug she offered. I am happy. The party's going to be amazing. Christina's bringing her famous spinach dip. The Hendersons are driving up from Albany, and Mark promised to bring that wine you liked from the restaurant. Mark promised, like he was doing us some kind of favor. That's nice of him, I said. I should probably thank him personally. Something flickered across Elena's face. Worry, maybe, or guilt. You don't need to make a big deal about it. He's just being polite. Polite. That was one word for it. I spent Thursday afternoon calling in a favor from my oldest friend, Harris Cole. Harry had been a police detective for 15 years, before starting his own private investigation business. We'd known each other since college, and he was the only person I trusted with what I'd discovered. You sure about this? Harry asked when I finished explaining the situation. We were sitting in his cluttered office above a sandwich shop, surrounded by case files and empty coffee cups. I'm sure about what I saw. I'm not sure what to do about it. Harry leaned back in his chair, studying me with the same expression he'd worn when we used to play poker in our dorm room. What do you want to happen here, Luke? You want to confront her? File for divorce? Pretend it never happened? I want her to understand what she's done. I want consequences. Revenge. Justice. Harry smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Same thing, different marketing. We spent the next 2 hours planning what Harry called strategic information deployment. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous. Just a careful revelation of truth at the most impactful moment possible. Elena's Christmas party was going to be memorable, all right, just not in the way she'd planned. Friday evening, Elena transformed our house into something from a holiday magazine. White lights wrapped around every surface, garland draped the staircase, and the scent of cinnamon and pine filled every room. She'd hired professional caterers, rented extra furniture, and even installed a temporary bar in our living room. This must be costing a fortune, I said, watching uniformed servers arrange appetizers on silver platters. Elena barely looked up from the seating chart she'd been adjusting for the past hour. It's worth it. This party is important. Important. Because it was her coming out celebration, the social debut of her affair with Mark. I wondered if she'd planned to announce their relationship during the evening, or if she was saving that revelation for after the holidays like her text messages suggested. Where do you want me during all this? I asked. Just be yourself. Mingle, tell your computer stories, keep people entertained. She paused, pen hovering over her chart. And be nice to Mark. He's nervous about meeting everyone. Be nice to Mark. The man who'd been sleeping with my wife for months was nervous about meeting her friends. I'll be the perfect host, I promised. Saturday arrived gray and cold, with the kind of bitter wind that cuts through winter coats and settles in your bones. I spent the morning making final preparations of my own, double-checking the small digital recorder Harry had provided, and reviewing the printed copies of Elena's text messages I'd hidden in my study. Elena spent the day in constant motion, adjusting decorations, directing caterers, and changing outfits 3 times before settling on a red dress that hugged her figure in ways that made my chest ache. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. She looked like a woman preparing to celebrate the best night of her life. Maybe it would be, just not for the reasons she expected. The first guests arrived at 7. The Hendersons, our neighbors from 3 houses down. Christina Walsh, Elena's closest friend and biggest gossip source. Tom and Jennifer Martinez from Elena's yoga class. By 7:30, our house buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the gentle clink of wine glasses. Mark arrived at 8:15, fashionably late, and carrying an expensive bottle of champagne. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car payment. He moved through our house like he owned it, shaking hands and making small talk with the confidence of a man who'd never faced serious consequences for anything. Luke! He approached me at the bar, extending his hand with a politician's smile. I've heard so much about you. Elena talks about you constantly. I'll bet she does, I thought, accepting his handshake. His grip was firm but not aggressive, the practiced gesture of someone who'd learned to project authority without seeming threatening. All good things, I hope, I said. Nothing but. She's very proud of your work. Computer security, right? Must be fascinating. It has its moments. Lots of detective work, actually. Following trails, uncovering secrets, exposing vulnerabilities. I smiled. You'd be surprised how much people think they can hide. Something shifted in Mark's expression just for a second. Then, the politician's smile returned. I imagine so. Well, I should mingle. Thank you for including me tonight. Wouldn't dream of excluding you, I said. After all, you're practically family. He moved away quickly after that, gravitating toward Elena like a moth to flame. I watched them together, noting the careful distance they maintained, the way they avoided looking directly at each other, the subtle signals they'd probably developed over months of sneaking around. They were good at it. I had to give them credit for that. Harry arrived at 9, dressed in his best suit and carrying a bottle of wine that contained more than just alcohol. We'd spent Friday evening preparing what he called party favors, small printed cards with select quotes from Elena's text messages, carefully chosen for maximum impact and minimum deniability. You sure about this? He asked quietly, joining me near the fireplace. Too late for second thoughts now. It's never too late for second thoughts. That's what makes them second thoughts. I watched Elena laugh at something Mark had whispered to her hand briefly touching his arm before she caught herself and pulled away. Look at them, Harry. Look how comfortable they are with lying to everyone in this room. Harry followed my gaze. They're comfortable because they think they're in control. You're about to change that. The evening progressed exactly as Elena had planned. Conversation flowed, the food received compliments, and our guests seemed genuinely entertained. Christina held court near the kitchen, sharing gossip about mutual acquaintances. The Hendersons discussed their upcoming vacation to Florida. Tom Martinez argued politics with anyone willing to engage. And through it all, Elena and Mark performed their careful dance, maintaining the illusion of casual professional friendship while stealing glances and sharing private smiles. At 10:30, Elena called for attention, tapping her wine glass with a silver spoon until the room quieted. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, she began, her voice warm and confident. This has been such a wonderful year, and I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate than surrounded by the people who matter most. Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Several people raised their glasses in response. I also want to thank someone special, Elena continued, her eyes finding Mark across the room. My boss and mentor, Mark Feldman, who's taught me so much about following my passion and pursuing what makes me truly happy. Following her passion. The double meaning wasn't lost on anyone who knew what to look for. Mark raised his glass with a modest smile. The pleasure's been all mine, Elena. You're an exceptional woman. That was my cue. I moved to the center of the room, raising my own glass. Since we're making toasts, I'd like to add something. Elena's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't part of her script. I want to thank my beautiful wife for organizing this incredible evening, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet room. Elena's always been good at bringing people together, at creating connections, at making sure everyone gets exactly what they deserve. I paused, letting the words settle. She's also taught me the importance of honesty in relationships. How crucial it is to share everything
Don't leave. Let me explain.
Explain a shade I don't know.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
with the people you love. To have no secrets, no hidden agendas, no private communications that might be misunderstood. The room was completely silent now. Elena's face had gone pale, and Mark was staring at me with the expression of a man who just realized he was standing in a minefield. So, in the spirit of complete honesty, I continued, reaching into my jacket pocket, I thought everyone should know about the wonderful surprise Elena's been planning. I pulled out the first card, holding it up so the room could see. This is a text message Elena sent 3 weeks ago. It says, and I quote, "We have to be careful. Luke can't find out." The silence stretched tighter. Christina's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. The Hendersons exchanged confused glances. And this one, I said, producing the second card, is from her boss, Mark. When are you going to tell him? To which Elena replied, soon, after the holidays. I want one last perfect Christmas. Elena's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. The sound seemed to break everyone's paralysis at once. Luke, what are you doing? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. I'm giving everyone the honesty they deserve, I said, pulling out the remaining cards. Would you like me to read the rest? There are some really interesting ones from October. Very detailed, very passionate. Mark stepped forward, his politician's composure cracking. This is completely inappropriate. These are private communications taken out of context. Private communications, I repeated. Is that what we're calling adultery now? The word hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Christina gasped audibly. Tom Martinez muttered something under his breath. The Hendersons started edging toward the door. Elena found her voice. Everyone, please, this is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I said. Like the misunderstanding at the Marriott downtown 3 weeks ago? Or the misunderstanding at that bed and breakfast in the Berkshires last month? I had their complete attention now. Even the caterers had stopped moving, frozen in place like actors who'd forgotten their lines. Luke, stop, Elena pleaded. Please, we can talk about this privately. We had 8 years to talk privately, I said. You chose to talk to Mark instead. Mark's face had turned an interesting shade of red. I think I should leave. Oh, you're not going anywhere, I said, moving to block his path to the door. This party's just getting started. The silence in our living room was deafening. 23 guests stood frozen like mannequins, wine glasses suspended in midair, conversations cut off mid-sentence. Elena stared at me with a mixture of horror and disbelief, while Mark looked like a man calculating the fastest route to the nearest exit. Luke, Elena said carefully, you're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Elena, you've been making a scene for 4 months. I'm just providing the audience you deserve. Christina, never one to miss drama, stepped closer. Are you saying Elena's having an affair? I'm not saying anything, I replied, holding up another card. Elena's text messages are saying it. Would you like me to read the one where she describes Mark's hotel preferences? Very specific details about thread count and room service. Elena's face went from pale to flushed. Those messages are private property. You had no right. Private property? I interrupted. Like our marriage vows were private property. Like our shared bank account. that paid for your romantic getaways was private property. Mark finally found his voice. This is harassment. I'm calling the police. Please do, I said. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your company's policy on supervisors sleeping with their employees, especially married employees. That's still a fireable offense at most companies, isn't it? The color drained from Mark's face. Apparently, his confidence didn't extend to public scandals that might affect his business reputation. Harry materialized at my elbow, his detective instincts probably sensing the need for backup. Everything okay here? Everything's perfect, I said. We're just sharing some holiday memories. Elena was about to tell everyone about her favorite Christmas gift this year. Elena's eyes darted around the room, looking for allies or escape routes. This is insane. You're acting crazy. Crazy? I pulled out my phone, opening the cloud backup of her messages. Let me read you something that might sound crazy. This is from last Tuesday. I can't wait to be free of this charade. Luke's so oblivious. He actually thinks I'm working late. The Hendersons were definitely moving toward the door now. But I wasn't finished. Or how about this one from Mark? We should tell him together. It would be kinder than letting him find out on his own. I looked directly at Mark. Kinder. That's thoughtful of you, Mark. Really shows your character. That's enough, Mark said, stepping toward me, with what I assumed was supposed to be an intimidating posture. You've made your point. Have I? I pocketed my phone and faced him directly. Because my point is that you're a predator who targets married women, and my wife is selfish enough to destroy an 8-year marriage for someone she's known for 2 years. I don't think that point has really sunk in yet. The room erupted in whispers. Christina was practically vibrating with excitement, probably already composing the social media posts that would spread this story through our entire social circle by morning. The Martinez couple huddled together, debating whether to stay for the drama or leave before things got worse. Elena tried a different approach. Luke, I know you're hurt, but this isn't the way to handle it. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. Work through this? I turned to face her, and she actually took a step backward. Elena, you've been planning to leave me for months. You said so yourself in your messages. You called our marriage a charade and me oblivious. What exactly are we supposed to work through? Those messages were taken out of context, she said weakly. Context? I nodded thoughtfully. Okay, let's talk about context. The context where you told Mark you loved him 3 weeks ago. The context where you two planned to move in together after the holidays. The context where you've been lying to my face every single day while planning your exit strategy. Elena's composure finally cracked completely. Tears started flowing, but whether from guilt or frustration, I couldn't tell anymore. I never meant for it to happen, she sobbed. It developed naturally. Mark and I have so much in common. We understand each other. You understand each other, I repeated. Is that what you call it when you send him pictures of yourself in the lingerie I bought you for our anniversary? That revelation sent another wave of gasps through our audience. Christina's hand flew to her mouth. Even Harry looked surprised. Mark's political composure finally shattered. This is private information obtained illegally. I could sue you for invasion of privacy. Sue me, I said. I'd love to see you explain to a judge why you think your adultery deserves privacy protection. I'm sure the local newspapers would find that argument fascinating. The threat of public exposure hit its mark. Mark's face went white, and I could practically see him calculating the damage to his business reputation. You don't understand the situation, he said desperately. Elaine and I, we fell in love. These things happen. We didn't plan it. You didn't plan it, might I said, pulling out my phone again. Let me read you Elena's message from September 15th. I think Luke's getting suspicious. We need to be more careful about our timing. Does that sound unplanned to you? Elena was crying harder now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Please stop. Please. I'll do anything. We can fix this. Fix this? I looked around the room at our guests, some horrified, some fascinated, all of them witnesses to the complete destruction of my marriage. Elena, there's nothing left to fix. You made your choice months ago. I made a mistake, she pleaded. People make mistakes. Mistakes? I said quietly, are forgetting to pick up milk or missing a dinner reservation. Mistakes aren't 4-month affairs with detailed exit strategies. The front door opened, and several guests took the opportunity to slip out quietly. I didn't blame them. This wasn't the kind of entertainment most people signed up for at a Christmas party. But I wasn't finished yet. There's one more thing everyone should know, I said, raising my voice to address the remaining guests. Elena didn't just betray our marriage. She's been using company resources for personal affairs, meeting Mark on company time, and billing clients for hours she spent in hotel rooms. Mark stepped forward aggressively. That's a lie. Is it? I held up my phone again. Elena's calendar entries are very detailed. Client meetings that lasted 6 hours, at locations with no actual clients. Expense reports for restaurants that don't exist. Should I call your business partners and ask them about their policy on fraudulent billing? The threat hit home. Mark's advertising agency was small enough that a scandal could destroy it completely. And we both knew it. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want everyone in this room to understand exactly who you both are, I said. I want Elena's friends to know she's been lying to them for months. I want your professional contacts to know you prey on married employees. I want consequences. Elena wiped her eyes, smearing mascara across her cheek. I'll leave. Tonight. I'll pack my things and go. Just please stop humiliating me. Humiliating you? I stared at her in disbelief. Elena, you humiliated yourself. You humiliated our marriage. You humiliated every person in this room who trusted you enough to celebrate Christmas in our home while you planned to abandon it. The remaining guests were shifting uncomfortably, clearly wanting to leave but afraid to miss the conclusion of the drama. Christina, predictably, broke the silence. So, what happens now? Now, I said, Elena packs her things and moves in with Mark, like they planned. Now, Mark explains to his business partners why their company is about to become the subject of very public gossip. Now everyone goes home and tells their friends about the Christmas party, where Elena Hartman's secret affair got exposed in front of 23 witnesses. Elena looked around the room desperately, searching for sympathy or support. She found none. Even Christina, her closest friend, was staring at her with a mixture of disappointment and fascination. This isn't over, Mark said, trying to salvage some dignity. You can't destroy people's lives because you're angry. I'm not destroying anything, I replied calmly. I'm just revealing what was already destroyed. Elena destroyed our marriage. You destroyed your professional ethics. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. The room fell silent again. Elena had stopped crying, but her face was blotchy, and her dress was wrinkled from nervous fidgeting. Mark stood beside her, both of them looking like defendants, waiting for a verdict. The party's over, I announced to the remaining guests. Thank you all for coming. I'm sure this will be a Christmas to remember. One by one, our guests filed out, some offering awkward condolences, others simply fleeing the uncomfortable situation. Christina lingered longest, clearly hoping for additional details she could share later. Within 15 minutes, only Elena, Mark, Harry, and I remained in our decorated living room, surrounded by abandoned wine glasses and the remnants of what was supposed to be a perfect evening. Elena broke the silence first. I'll get my things. Take your time, I said, but don't take anything that isn't yours. She headed upstairs, her heels clicking against the hardwood like a countdown timer. Mark started toward the door, then turned back. You think you've won something here, but you haven't. You've just guaranteed that everyone will remember you as the bitter husband who couldn't handle losing his wife. Maybe, I said, but they'll remember you as the boss who sleeps with married employees, and Elena as the wife who planned her affair like a marketing campaign. I can live with my reputation. He left without another word, and I heard his car start in the driveway moments later. Harry clapped me on the shoulder. How do you feel? I looked around our living room, still decorated for Christmas, but now empty of guests and illusions. I feel like I just took out the trash. Elena came downstairs 20 minutes later with 2 suitcases and a look of defeat I'd never seen before. She paused at the door, as if waiting for me to say something, to offer some final chance at reconciliation. I said nothing. I'm sorry, she whispered. No, I replied. You're not sorry it happened. You're sorry you got caught. She left without arguing, and I watched through the window as her car disappeared into the December night. The house felt different immediately, quieter but not in a lonely way. More like the silence after a storm passes, when you can finally assess the damage and start planning repairs. Harry helped me clean up the wine glasses and abandoned appetizers. So what's next? Next, I file for divorce. Next, I change the locks. Next, I start figuring out what my life looks like without Elena in it. Any regrets? I considered the question seriously. I regret trusting her. I regret not seeing the signs earlier. I don't regret exposing the truth. Even in front of all those people. Especially in front of all those people, I said. Elena cared more about her reputation than our marriage. It seems fitting that her reputation paid the price. Harry nodded approvingly. Justice served. Justice served, I agreed. We finished cleaning in comfortable silence, two old friends putting the pieces back together after everything fell apart. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the tracks Elena's car had left in the driveway. By morning, there would be no trace that she'd ever been here at all. I turned off the Christmas lights, locked the door, and went upstairs to sleep alone in my own house for the first time in 8 years. The bed felt bigger than I remembered, but not empty, just mine. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up to check anyone's phone. Character count, 42,847.